attempt to show you sort of all the rest of the steps after you burnish your floor, right? So you've burnished it, it's completely dried, and when you come back, this has already been oiled, so this is sort of pretend, right? But when you come back to oil a floor, it's really fragile to scuffing because it doesn't have anything that's stopping it from just rubbing itself off. Like it's got a troweled surface like the plaster, so you could feel that it is tough. You could walk on it, but I generally suggest to wear bare feet and roll up your pants so high enough so you're not dragging them on the floor. The oil that you're going to put on, whether you buy my oil or any oil, you're going to get it on your body. I wear gloves. I walk barefoot. If you are using oil that has heavy metals in it, I would suggest wearing little booties so you don't have a bunch of oil that's got chemicals that you don't want in your bloodstream. My oils are all plant-based. They're not going to make you ill, or you may be sensitive to the smell, but it's not as toxic. Anyway, those being said, like I said in this presentation, when you come in, bring your oil stuff, but then always bring your oil stuff away. I'm not going to have a rag today, but if you were to have any rags that got oily, or brushes or sponges that got oily, you'd want to for sure take care of those. Brushes I try to reuse by putting them in solvent, either turpentine or citrus solvent. Rags are pretty much gone, so I just lay them out to dry so that they could oxidize and turn into hard oil. Once it's dry, it's not flammable, but when that rag has got wet oil in it and it's doing any sort of drying, that is a danger that you just don't want to leave anywhere. Your back of your truck, someone's job site, anywhere.
Yeah, I learned it's not if it'll happen, it will happen. For sure.
Yeah, it is spontaneously combustible.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have those scenarios, it doesn't just do it in there.
Right. It has to be the rags all together. And...
Yeah.
But it
Once
will.
it's that way, it will. Yeah, there's no like, oh, maybe not.
Yeah.
How do you dry them out without them spontaneously combusting?
What did you say?
How do you dry them out without them combusting?
You lay them flat. Basically, crinkled up things make hot pockets, and those edges, it's like a fire waiting to happen, right? You just lay it out. I lay it out on my driveway, so it's concrete. It will leave oil stains, so don't lay it on someone's driveway that you don't want to leave oil stains on. So if you have to leave a job site with a bunch of oily rags, just put them in a bucket full of water.
Yeah.
That makes it that you can make it to wherever you need to go. And you can leave it in that water for a long time, but if it dries out and then it hasn't fully dried and there's oxidation again, then you want to make sure you lay those things flat and not on top of each other. So those are some of the basic flammability deals with the oil. Like I said, I wear gloves. Just basically, I always wear gloves so I could take those gloves off and answer the phone or do other things. None of this stuff is bad for your hands. I just do that for my own flexibility in the day. I do wear a respirator, and I would definitely suggest anybody using linseed oil or other blends of drying oils with solvents to wear a respirator. There are natural VOCs that are not healthy at the amounts that you're using for your nervous system.
The citrus solvent too, right?
Yeah, there's citrus and pine solvents in it.
And the citrus has the VOCs as well, right?
The citrus and the pine are the VOCs.
Oh, those are the VOCs.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Those have the VOCs in them. To my understanding in my research, I'm getting confused about if linseed oil really has a VOC or just a scent. That's just off topic. But, so, again, you don't want to leave your bucket on site. You don't want to put it, like this threshold, if I had oily on the bottom of the bucket and I set it on that threshold, that would make oily stain. Oily stain does not go away. So, just watch where you put your oily things. You're typically in a space that other things are finished, like there's a finished wall, there's finished surfaces. You just don't put anything on anything else. Countertops and windowsills and fireplaces, you just keep all of your oiliness to yourself because it's not something that can be cleaned up. It just has to be blended at that point. Okay, that being said, you take your shoes off, you roll up you wear shorts, so you roll up your pants, and you're gonna take a brush around the edge. It's just easier to get the edge, especially if it's a little irregular like this edge. And I do 3 coats around the edge, and then I do 4 coats in the field. And the reason that I do different is that the application of oil with a brush tends to be thicker applications, and so time and time again it's shown me that I do 3 coats at the edge and 4 in the middle, and they're the same darkness. I don't usually do a lot of blending. I just do a line at the edge, and then I make sure that when I roll, I go right to it. I try not to go into that brushed area. Just watch it as you go. If you're seeing that you're making a strong line, back off. Not put so much there. It's better to use higher quality brushes. This is a decent brush. The little cheapy, $1.50 brushes, the hairs fall out. And that's just annoying. I mean, when you're putting oil on, it doesn't matter too much because it's not going to stick anything to the floor. It's just getting through everything, getting into the floor. It's not a sticky, holding everything, like all this crumbs wouldn't stick to the floor because of the oil. But definitely in the wax application, you wouldn't want to have brush hairs because they would stay. That being said about crumbs, I would sweep this room loosely. Again, that surface is fragile, so you wouldn't want a very stiff broom to sweep the room. If it was this amount of crumbs, I would sweep it with a soft broom. But if it's just, if it looked like this, just a little bit I wouldn't even sweep because it's just not needed. The oil will just get through everything, and as you'll find when you oil a floor, if you guys get the opportunity to oil the floor that we're gonna do, there's already loose bits on the surface that are just getting kind of mixed in with the oil. At the bottom of your oil bucket, there's always a little pile of sand and clay, and that's just not a problem. That's just what happens every time. So if you see that, you're not ruining your floor. The field, I use a roller, like a paint roller with a nap. It doesn't matter what size nap. They all basically get down to nothing in a couple runs of oil on the floor. I generally get a medium nap.
Nap? What's a nap?
Nap, it's a description of, the painter should tell us.
It's just the thickness of the roller, and to some extent the quality or density.
Yeah. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
I think so. Yeah.
It's that
Yes.
little rolly thing.
Yeah. How thick
Thicker and thinner.
It's like a 3/4 inch nap or like an 1/8 of an inch satin nap, where it doesn't.
So it relates to paint when you're saying satin more than what we're doing, but I just get kind of 3/4 fine. And I put all 4 in on the floor in a day. This size of a room, you would, I would do all 3, and then I would just roll the field. 1, 2, 3, and by the time you get to the 3rd, it might mean that that you have to wait a few minutes to start the 4th. You want to basically wait until all of the shiny, pooly, oily surface settles into the floor, so that you're not having a danger of having pooling oil on the surface. You don't want to ever leave pools of oil on the surface. So anyway, just might take a little while for that 3rd coat because the floor is filling up. You can go further and do more coats than 4, and the indicator of if you've reached the maximum amount of oil you want to put in the floor is back to that pools of oil on the floor. If you start seeing oil stay on the floor for more than 20 minutes, then you want to kind of soak up that extra oil and lay that rag out to dry somewhere where it's not going to get oily, and not put any more oil there. You don't leave any pools of oil on the floor. They will dry and be gummy, sticky areas that are nothing you want to deal with. So we're not going to oil this whole floor. I'm just trying to discuss the process of it. It's pretty easy or do you have any questions about that? I don't want to say it's easy unless you... It's pretty simple. So we're going to deal with this crack, and in that you'll see a little bit of how you deal with the crack, and then what the floor looks like when it receives oil. But I'll just say something about cracks. We changed the recipe in the floor mix here at Apro to 4.5 parts sand instead of just 4 parts sand. Because we're seeing a little bit more cracking than we had before, and so we're just seeing where it's at. So it seems like it needs more sand. And I'm having to wonder, you know how I've been really fussy about having your knees not make piles in the gravel? That gravel really needs to be compacted. If it's loose underneath, it requires us to do a lot more work to make that floor stable. You want no movement underneath your floor. And so I suspect that there's kind of something like that going on, as well as I've been really particular about getting that floor wet before you put the mud down. You want it to adhere and stick as best it can. Because some of these cracks, if you see, will you move your foot, John? And that spot right there, the big three-way cracks right here. One, there's 3 off of it. That, can you guys hear?
Hollow?
A little hollow?
Mm-hmm.
It's likely that there's some delamination happening when it's a 3-way like that. It's not moving, so I'm not going to fuss with it, but that's not the best scenario. Before anyone moves in here, I would say the very least that needs to happen is oil needs to go over this whole surface again. We're not going to do that right now, but one should have that in mind, or someone should tell the powers that be. Because those holes are susceptible for... It could have been that the delamination is happening since the crack happened, not because of a delamination underneath. But when oil gets between... when any moisture gets down there, it can reactivate the clay and pull it away. And so whenever there's a crack or any sort of ding, you just go put oil in it right away. Hopefully that has oil on it. I don't know when this crack happened, whether it was before or after. I suspect that it was after the floor was oiled because it's still there. And if there's cracks like this before you oil, you would patch them, or I would suggest that you would patch them. That being said, we're not going to be getting to be able to do demonstrations of filling cracks before oil. But what I'm about to do here with filling this crack after oil is kind of similar. So when I go through that, I'll describe the difference. Cracks also, if they start to appear as the floor is drying, I just let it go until the end of the floor drying, because cracks will continue moving until the floor is completely dry. It's a shrinking, drying out process. And so if you go back and burnish the floor and fuss with it, those cracks will come back because it's just not done moving. So it's just less labor if you just let it go and wait to the end. Again, that being said, say tomorrow you come out and you want to burnish the floor and there's some cracks appearing. Don't fuss too much about the cracks, but do compress the whole floor, just because the compression is giving the majority of the floor that more stable, solid finish if you just compress the whole thing. And by doing that, you will kind of fill in cracks, but I don't want you to fuss with it too much because it's not worth your time. You're going to have to wait until it's fully dry to really deal with the cracks. So it's just guidance for your future. If cracks happen, just let them go. But always, if you can, get back and burnish the floor because it will give that dense quality. Do you have any questions as of this moment? Yeah.
Do you
You first, then you.
ever like vacuum ahead of time to get all the